Well, as we enter the final week of the campaign, let's get the perspective from three colleagues in the National Press Gallery around what to watch for and what we're seeing in the final week of the race. Heather Scoffield is the Ottawa bureau chief for the Toronto Star and columnist with that news outlet as well. Bob Fife's the parliamentary bureau chief for the Globe and Mail, and Mia Rabson is a parliamentary reporter for the Canadian Press. Good to see you all. Heather, let me start with you. We saw the Conservative leader take a hard turn today and get very personal in his attacks on Justin Trudeau as privileged and entitled and always looking out for number one, and going as far as to say that he's no longer worthy of respect. Why is Erin O'Toole launching these kinds of attacks now?
I think we're at that point in the campaign where everybody's pivoting towards, we're done with all the policy. They put most of it out there. And I think right now they're really trying very hard to define each other's character. So we're into the final days of that. I think the Conservatives are feeling that perhaps they were enjoying some momentum in the polls a couple of weeks ago. There are some signs that maybe it might be a bit soft. And so I think they're trying to buckle down and harden that up as much as they can. And so it doesn't surprise me at all, really, that we're hearing some personal attacks coming from Erin O'Toole directed towards Justin Trudeau. And Trudeau, he's got to harden up his vote too, right? It's just so close that it's not a surprise to me that it's getting personal at this point.
What are your thoughts on this, Bob? Because it occurs to me in watching all of this that this is from the Liberal 101 playbook, is demonize the opponent in the last week of the campaign. It looks like Erin O'Toole's trying to flip that on its head, tired of being pincushion in every campaign. Is there a difference between what Erin O'Toole's saying and what Justin Trudeau's saying today? Well, I'm not getting personal, I'm just attacking policies.
Well, I mean, he was getting personal, basically saying, oh, of course I'm not getting personal, but he's with anti-vaxxers, he's with the gun folks. He was being very critical and personal with the Conservative leader as well. But I think one of the reasons why the Conservatives are going more personal is that the Liberals have been very effective over the last week with attack ads, particularly on the vaccinations, but also on guns. And I think we're initially beginning to see that in the 905 area, the Liberals are now creeping back up so that they may have less worries about split votes in those ridings and the Conservatives winning it. And one of the factors in this election campaign has been Trudeau's dragged down the Liberal Party in this election campaign. And I think one of the reasons why they're going to go negative on Trudeau is try to see if that can help them in the Conservatives in the final stretch of this election campaign. All
right, Mia, what are your thoughts on what we're seeing in these final days of the campaign?
I think we're seeing what the parties are believing is sort of what this election is about and what people are already feeling. The Liberals think that Erin O'Toole is a little bit weak or vulnerable on vaccinations, on coming out of this pandemic. So they're going hard on him on those things. The Conservatives see that Justin Trudeau, his ethics and his leadership are the big questions for people about the Liberal Party. So that is where they are going hard. They're really trying to solidify these maybe things that people are, maybe I'm kind of thinking that. They are trying to jam it home. And as people are now going to the ballot box, we also know, and we had advanced polls over the weekend, mail-in ballots, people are already voting, and more people are expected to vote before Election Day than ever before. So they need to do this now as people are actually making those choices.
Heather, the Liberal leader today promised a re-elected Liberal government would bring in criminal protections for health workers who've been facing confrontations from anti-vaxxers, a criminal offense to block any building providing health services, criminal offense to intimidate or threaten healthcare workers, and a promise of protections for businesses that require proof of vaccination from employees or customers, and that might end up facing legal challenges. Interesting. I mean, he's been on vaccinations the whole campaign, but he's really sort of doubled down on them the last couple of days, as if the Liberals now have very clear indication they see this as a point of demarcation with the Conservatives. It might even make the difference in the campaign. How do you see it?
It's interesting, too, that Jagmeet Singh had some similar proposals today as well. And I think what it tells us is, that whole discourse that we heard at the beginning of the campaign or that we've heard over the past few months from the Liberals about Build Back Better and those long-term plans, perhaps is not resonating as much as voters' concerns about the here and now, but just get us out of this thing. And that the leader who has the best plan to just, deal with the pandemic and get rid of it and deal with the animosity that we see right in front of our faces right now will be the one to carry the day. So so that's, I think, why Justin Trudeau is really doubling down on the more immediate plans. I mean, yes, they have they all have plans about housing and climate change and in the economy and so forth, but the emphasis is very much on the here and now.
Right. Interesting, Bob, that the campaign began when the Prime Minister suggesting, or Liberal leader suggesting, Prime Minister at the time, that, look, we can have an election now because we can do it safely. It's time to choose the future of the pandemic. We've come sort of full circle now to the end of the campaign where he said last night and again today, if you want the pandemic to end, you have to vote Liberal. What's the strategy here?
Well, look, I think their own polls are showing that, it's obvious, Canadians are very, very concerned about the fourth wave, particularly as we head into the fall. And the statistics show that the people who are getting sick are people who have not been vaccinated or have been only partially vaccinated. That puts Mr. O'Toole in trouble because some of his candidates are not vaccinated or not fully vaccinated, even though he is being very clear how supportive he is of it. But I think that really hurts the Conservative message. And I think it hurts them everywhere because people are very, very concerned about the fourth wave, and we want to get on with our lives, and we want people to be properly vaccinated.
Mia, how do you think, if you do see a change, how do you think that is happening with the use of the vaccination issue, and likely to expect a ramping up of that in the final days of the campaign as the Liberals try to make that a point of differentiation with Conservatives?
I think so. I mean, we've seen it from the beginning. Justin Trudeau has been pushing this idea about vaccines and vaccine mandates and talking about Erin O'Toole not wanting to go forward with vaccine mandates. His favorite line, I think I've heard it a million times in this campaign, is he wants to get 90% of Canadians vaccinated. He can't even get 90% of his candidates vaccinated. So it's something that Trudeau is going hard on. What was interesting to me today is he's not just going today on the vaccine and getting vaccinated and vaccine mandates. He is pushing back against these protests that are sort of obviously affiliated with anti-vaccination movements, but which I have seen a growing and large number of Canadians feel really angry about what's happening. They want to see leadership from all of the politicians to say, this is not okay. This is not okay to happen in Canada. You can protest all you want, but blocking an ambulance from getting to the hospital, people are very angry about this. And that is kind of the anger that Trudeau, I think, is trying to tap into now to motivate people to go to the polls. He's trying to link the Conservatives to these protests, even though, with the exception of a few at maybe one anti-Trudeau event early on, there's no evidence that it's actually Conservatives at these. He was asked about that today. He couldn't provide any evidence. He is trying to link the Conservatives to that to make Canadians angry at them and motivate them to go to the polls and vote for the Liberals.
Bob, let me jump back to you here, and then we'll go around as our final run here. Jody Wilson-Raybould's back in the news with her allegations against the Prime Minister. You've been all over that story again. Where does that factor as we get to the final part of the campaign here? And give me a sense of what you'll be watching for if that's part of it in the last 6 days of the campaign here till we get to voting day.
Well, I'm not sure that it's going to have an overall impact on voters. It will reinforce a message that Trudeau cannot be trusted. She writes about the centralized control around the Prime Minister's office. She said that he wanted her to lie. So but we've already known a lot of that stuff in the SNC-Lavalin affair. So I think it doesn't help at all, certainly, but I don't think it's going to have a long-term effect on this election campaign. What I think is happening here is that, the Conservatives are stalled and the Liberals are slowly trending upwards. They're definitely, I think it's going to be a Liberal minority, and it could even be a strong Liberal minority.
All right. Heather, what are you watching for in the final few days of the campaign? What are you going to set your sights on?
Well, I'm looking to see exactly how Justin Trudeau manages to, if I agree with Bob that there is some momentum, slow momentum that we see with the Liberals. How are they going to amplify that and turn it into something broader? Does Justin Trudeau go really negative against Erin O'Toole to amplify that, or does he, go out with big vision and positive hope and an uplifting message? Is that what he's going to be able to try to get people on side with? And also, get out the vote is hugely important. Every single vote counts all the time, but especially now.
All right, Mia, what will you be watching for in the days ahead here?
I'm watching to see how much he turns his attention to Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, because for the most part, those are the voters the Liberals really want to bring into their camp to sort of bring them up over the top. There's maybe some soft Conservative votes that they're looking for, but today he was really going hard against Erin O'Toole, didn't really mention Jagmeet Singh very often. I'm really interested to see if that changes over the rest of the week, because that'll be a sign as to where the Liberals think that those final votes will be coming from.
Yeah, one suspects that might be coming. You get the feeling watching the campaign events today that Jagmeet Singh knows it's coming, because he spent a lot of time today, deflecting questions about who he might support in a minority parliament. He didn't make the same mistake today as he's made in the last election campaign, right?
And a little bit of, I did this too on the healthcare workers. Don't forget about me.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for your time today. Lots to consider in the days ahead. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.